Tonight I'm going to be doing a reading from my first book, Dimension Lapse, and I'll be reading chapter 1. And this is going to be part of a contest for 10 weeks. Each night, each week, I will be doing one question at the end of the reading. And if you comment down on the below, or send me a PM, send me a private message of the answer, and whoever has the most correct at the end of the 10 weeks, at the end of the book, will win all 6 books. They'll win the whole shebang, the whole series. So it's a $50 value for nothing. So without further ado, we'll start. And I'm going to be reading chapter 1. Okay. Jeff could remember the exact date of his arrival on this peculiar world. It was December 15th, 2159, when he had left Pluto. He was investigating the possibility of an alien race when his instruments were damaged. His ship took a lot of beating, and it landed on a tropical island of a strange planet. Upon landing there, he was greeted by amphibian-like beings, which were peaceful and very primitive, living in caves before his arrival. They treated his wounds and helped salvage his ship, and in return, Jeff helped them build homes to live in. Their mutual friendship, however, was only a substitute for human companionship. The most outspoken alien called himself Dormiton, and wasn't very large, strong, or even intelligent. None of their race possessed these qualities. Even though they possessed human emotions, most of their decisions were logical and practical. They didn't need much sleep, only 3 to 4 hours daily. Although they were smaller than humans, they had similar organs as any other amphibian would. However, their lungs were a little large in comparison due to their slightly more concentrated atmosphere. Dormiton was a rather inquisitive creature who was interested in where Jeff came from and who he was. Jeff taught him everything he knew about space travel, Mars, and Earth. He explained how in the year 2015, a global war almost destroyed everything on his grandparents' home planet, Earth. The survivors repaired what was left and reached for the stars, building a space station that housed 5,000 people. The world obliterated, they had no choice but to go to Mars to begin a massive colonization effort. Setting up large solar panels to collect heat from the sun, they constructed a colossal vegetation project, collecting carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, sunlight from the solar panels, and water from under the soil. They were able to increase the surface temperature 25 degrees around the biodomes, and oxygen and nitrogen in the atmosphere by 10%. The biggest problem was little protection from gamma rays and solar radiation, other than the coated polyethylene shielding on the biodomes. It was not a perfect situation, but it allowed the air and spacesuits to be a little more comfortable and flexible. Jeff was assigned to the Mars base his entire life and never saw the Rocky Mountains of Earth or the sandy beaches of the tropics. He only saw pictures of the way Earth used to look like. Mars, for the most part, was flat, rocky terrain, except for Olympus Mons, Arsia Mons, and other mountains, and forests, crops, fields, and lakes inside the biodome vegetation complexes. The Earth stations Adromos and Tianos were transported away from Earth orbit Mars. The population before Jeff's father left the orbit of Earth had grown to 90,000 people. There were 60,000 living at the Martian base where Jeff resided. He went on many flight missions he was assigned to, including one retrieving ice samples from the dwarf planet Pluto. Here is where his first encounter with extraterrestrials occurred, and the last time he would see any humans for a long time. While maneuvering by Pluto, Jeff noticed a flashing light at the corner of his eye. It disappeared rather abruptly and then reappeared minutes later, passing right by his craft. The speed of the phenomenon was far beyond Martian technology, so Jeff decided not to pursue it. 2 hours later, he made his landing on the cold, icy plains of the barren world. The solar wind was not as calm as he had hoped it would be, and the touchdown was a bit turbulent, but would suffice. He shut off the power supply, suited up, turned on the button of his suit's temperature controlled to 70 degrees, grabbed his laser gun along with some soil sample containers, and opened the primary door lock. A sense of strange uneasiness came over his mind he never felt before, a ghostly apprehension, being exposed to the cold, silent, and raw elements of the hostile world. He leaped gently onto the icy surface, his boots biting into it. Although none of the several stories of ships that were attacked by aliens were officially substantiated, he was cautious after hearing about them. After realizing there wasn't any immediate danger, he fired his laser into the ground, melting a chunk of the frozen nitrogen methane ice cover that probably had been there for thousands of years. He then placed a small sample inside one of the receptacles he brought. "Major Walker to base," he said through a transmitter in his helmet. The response was a little delayed due to the distance between worlds. "This is Mars base," a woman's voice answered. It was Laurie Anderson, a close friend and co-worker, and Jeff had a fancy for her beautiful blue eyes, long blonde curly hair, and an ivory fair complexion. "Have you received the soil samples yet?" "Over." "Yes," he said. "Before landing, however, I saw some kind of light in the sky. It was faster than any of our ships. I think it was a meteor, but I can't be positive." "We'll send a couple of scouts your way," Laurie answered in a firm, commanding voice. "If you're through there, Commander Carver wants you back here." "Roger, over and out." Jeff retrieved the rest of the samples and headed back to the ship. Pluto was at perihelion. That's the closest point to the sun, and the nitrogen methane was melting, and it was a good time to drill ice cores. He was almost to the door when the light appeared again, this time not more than 10 miles away from him. He barely saw the faint beacon through the foggy, snow-covered atmosphere. There were 3 green lights on top of the red light, and it was spherical in its black oval shape. When it came to in close view, its appearance convinced him that it was alien. He held his laser tight, headed quickly back to the ship, threw his handheld core drill into the ship, climbed in, and slammed the hatch tight behind him. He turned on the power immediately, but it went dead when the alien ship fired upon him. He tried to reach Mars base, but couldn't establish any radio contact. Beginning to panic, he grabbed his laser pistol and some explosives and headed for the escape hatch below the ship. He heard the sound of the lasers as they blasted against the main door hatch. He pushed the escape door hatch open and gently dropped to the ground below the ship. He could see his aggressors as he peered from the corner of one of the landing pods. He saw 2 of them who wore suits very similar to his and carried lasers. They couldn't breathe the thin, poisonous atmosphere either, for they all had small tanks on their back as well. When they discovered the ship was empty, they started to turn away. Jeff jumped, floating towards them, opened fire, and shot one in the back. The blast killed him instantly as the other leaped towards the ship, only to be killed by an explosion Jeff had thrown and destroyed part of the craft in the process. The smoke cleared, and Jeff saw the inside of the black craft through the hole the explosive had made. He approached the ship, careful to make sure there weren't any aliens to retaliate against him. The writing on the side appeared to be hieroglyphics, but it was not from Earth or displayed Earth-like origins. When Jeff entered, he noticed there was seating for 2 pilots only, even though the ship was a great deal larger than his own, approximately 150 feet wide to be exact. The control panel was similar to his, but he was unable to decipher the writing. He noticed a flashing red light on the panel was activated, but wasn't sure if it was a rescue beacon or a self-destruct mechanism, and didn't want to stick around to find out. He opened the compartment located next to the escape hatch and took 2 extra laser guns and 2 small black spherical objects, which he didn't know what their purpose was. He jumped from the craft and approached the alien closest to the ship. Jeff pulled his helmet off and stared in disbelief. The creature was simian in appearance, with one eye in the middle of his grotesque head and covered with thick black fur. He photographed the alien with a camera about the size of a flash drive and jumped back into his ship. He shut the primary door lock and replaced his power supply cartridge with the only one he had left and switched on the control panel. The ship's sensors indicated that 2 crafts were moving at high velocity towards the surface. He fired the main thruster rockets and escaped as fast as he could, but not before being struck broadside by their photonic weapons. His control panel shorted out just before he fled the atmosphere, leaving him weaponless, motionless, and floating through the vacuum of space. During this time, a piece of metal from the ceiling fell and knocked him unconscious. When he finally awoke, he found that somehow he was spared. He lay on a beach of an unknown planet billions of miles from Pluto, he thought, unaware of how he got there or how to return home. Fortunately, his vessel had also been spared, which he found miraculous in itself, but it was still in pretty rough shape. When he rose to his feet, the amphibian beings who called themselves Lingwarts greeted him on the beach. He was now 2.5 years from that day and sweltering. And a sweltering August afternoon on a tropical island close to 105. Okay. Let me read that again. I must have missed a word. It was now 2.5 years from that day in a sweltering August afternoon on a tropical island close to 105 degrees. There weren't any clouds to shelter the heat, and Jeff sweated while he worked on repairing his ship. Fortunately, he kept a jug of fresh water next to him in case he needed it. Dormiton, his closest friend among the tribe, approached him from the far end of the beach. "What are you doing?" he asked, scratching his smooth, slender head as he entered the spaceship. "Trying to repair my control panel," Jeff said. "I don't know if I'll ever get this thing off the ground." "Is that bad?" Dormiton asked, not understanding even what a control panel was. "If I don't repair it, I'll be stuck here forever. Besides, we need lasers in case aliens show up. I won't be able to fix the ship for space travel, however. I don't think I'll ever be able to repair the shields. I may be able to fix the lasers, though." "Lasers?" he asked. "Weapons. tools to defend myself, like spears. Oh, I doubt you'll ever need anything like that here, Dormiton stated, as he sat in the extra pilot seat. Better safe than sorry, Jeff said, as he wiped the sweat from his forehead. Why would anyone want to attack us, Jeff? It doesn't help to gather food or please the gods. Besides, we have nothing anyone would want other than the island itself. It may sound senseless to you, but you'd be surprised that they may want your people as a slave race. You have to fight to protect your people. There will come a day when you have enemies, and you must defeat them to survive. You can't depend on me forever. What enemies could we possibly have here? The green, slender, spotted amphibian jested and threw his arms in the air. Your own gods can be your enemies, Jeff answered. When I first came here, you thought I was a god. If I came from the stars, there could be others. They may not be as peaceful as I am, and you need to be prepared. Are you saying that our gods are really star people like you? You are speaking in bad tongue, and you could be killed for saying such. His tone was serious and reminded him of the ancient customs that they swore to uphold as a race. No, I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that you should trust every god. You shouldn't trust every god that falls from the sky. If I wasn't peaceful, I could have easily killed your small community. What you need is something to protect you, like gunpowder. What's gunpowder? It's a type of powder that can be lit by a fire, but it goes out quickly. It helps project an object such as a rock through a cylinder of some kind. My only regret is that if I show you how to use it, I might change your entire future. In what way? I'd rather not discuss that now, Jeff said, as he finished. I finished some wires, shut the control panel, faceplate, and smiled. Besides that, buddy, we have to see if this beast will run. Dormiton closed the main door lock, and they put their helmets and safety belts on. Is Melgit meeting us at the village later? Jeff asked, and switched on the main power supply and fired the IM propulsion rockets. Dormiton nodded instead of talking over the noise of the engine. The craft slowly rose above the white beach, and Jeff switched on the main rockets, which elevated the craft over the ocean higher and faster. He reached an elevation of about 8,000 feet when he suddenly noticed a light on his right side. It looked like a spaceship, but it was too far away to determine if it was the same nature as the ones he saw on Pluto. When it came closer, he knew his intuition had been correct. The craft was similar to the one he had seen 2 years before, spherical in shape and black in color. Jeff navigated his ship closer, moved up to about Mach 8 when the craft made a linear curve to his left. The Martian's ship imitated his movements exactly as it plunged towards the ocean. Dormiton swallowed in fear, afraid they would meet a fiery, watery death. Relax, Jeff told his friend as he smiled. It's only a test run. Jeff closed in on the craft and reached for his laser controls. Upon firing, the panel short-circuited again. Damn, he hissed. And he tried to retreat, only to be stuck from behind. The ship spiraled out of control towards the sea below. Smoke billowed from the tail section, and Jeff in haste reached for the ejection lever. Upon pulling it, the escape pod piloted the two safely from the craft, which now struck the ocean in a blazing inferno. Fortunately, they landed in the water near the shoreline. It had been a rough landing, but neither one of them were hurt. They climbed from what was left of the ship and waded towards the shore. When they reached the beach, Jeff slammed his helmet in the sand in anger. I'm never going home now, he snapped, peering out at the sinking wreckage of the ship. Can you build a new one? His friend asked, unaware of the magnitude of the situation. It's not that simple, Jeff laughed. I need materials and processes that don't exist here, such as metal and fabrication of that metal. What does it look like? It's silver colored and shiny, Jeff said, annoyed by his ignorance. Just forget it. I'm stranded here. There's nothing anybody can do about it. I've seen what you seek, Dormiton told him. Jeff was both surprised and intrigued by his statement. Where? He asked. Behind that cove over there. He pointed to the ridge that overlooked the ocean, the opposite end of the beach, about 3 miles away. Every morning when the sun rises, 3 lights fly from the water where this meadow you speak of is. They vanish into the sky almost as if there's there and then they're gone. The lights have to be spaceships. An alien race could have a base here. We'll climb to that ridge tomorrow to get a better look. In the meantime, we need to go back to the village and get everyone into a safe place, like the caves on the other side of the island. Tell them a storm is coming. We don't know what we're dealing with yet, and we don't want anyone to be alarmed. Learning from past cultures helped Jeff to understand his new companions. For many civilizations in Earth's past, he learned to deal with more primitive people, assisting them in development and protecting their vulnerability to their enemies, especially themselves. Earthlings almost made themselves extinct, along with other species of animals they eliminated. It took 3 global wars for man to realize there would never be a victor. The third war happened at a time when peace had almost become a reality. He hadn't only confined his studies to Earth and Mars, however. Their probes traveled throughout their galaxy, collecting information on intelligent life. He never actually met an alien face to face, however, until that cold, stormy day on Pluto. Jeff showed the Lingward community how to construct huts from straw, wood, and clay, and how to seal them so they would be waterproof. He learned how to do this in the tropical biodome on Mars during his survival training in the academy. The village consisted of their 30 Lingwards, mostly males. The rest of the clan was supposed to arrive in 3 lunar cycles. They were migrating from a smaller island in search of food and sent scouts there when Jeff arrived at the island, and the others were soon to follow. The sun's rays shined on the small village, which was at the edge of the jungle. The village was lit rather well that night because of their precautions to depart to the caverns. Dinner consisted of the usual vegetables, herbs, and fruit, except for the small goose that Jeff captured earlier and ate. Eating meat or killing animals was sacrilege to the Lingwards, but they made an exception for small insects and fish that they could swallow whole. Even though they didn't believe in this, they were tolerant of their new friend's cuisine. The game was plentiful on the island, and he didn't miss an opportunity. After dinner, the townspeople gathered their gear and placed it on their backs. Dormiton and Jeff led them into the jungle, followed by the trustworthy friend Miljik. He was probably the most influential of all the villagers and the most curious. He was slightly more outspoken than Dormiton and quite a bit more pessimistic, which led Jeff to wonder how they ever became such close friends. Lingwards were like 4-feet salamanders to him, but no, a little bit of a frog, too. He couldn't explain how they were able to talk, but somehow they did. Even before he taught them English, they had spoken in their own native tongue. Jeff knew they had vocal cords and small, blunt teeth, but couldn't explain how they developed the language. Their race reminded him of ancient tribesmen on Earth. It was plain to see why they were gatherers and hadn't learned to kill yet, which presented its own share of problems when the other wild animals attacked. They would mostly run to wherever they could find refuge. Jeff wanted to keep violence out of their lives, but he also knew it was necessary evil sometimes. The that permanently scarred for life, considering you're still alive to begin with. They carried the serum with them at all times, made from some roots on the island. Jeff was not allowed to know what they were. It was sacred and used only by their Haduku, or medicine chief. Jeff showed them how he made his medicines from roots and herbs as well, something he learned in his early academy days. Jeff carried a dagger with him, as well as a laser gun in case of attack. About 3 hours passed when they came to a clearing to rest. There was considerably less humidity in the air when there was the previous evening, but it was still a hot evening. Jeff handed Dormiton a canteen and gestured for him to pass it to Miljic, who dropped his pack to the ground. Jeff suggested that they spend the night in the clearing because the caves were still over a mile away. He told them not to light any fires because they didn't know what they were facing yet. Jeff was nervous about the whole situation and couldn't sleep anyway, so he took the first watch while the others slept. The night was uneventful, and by the time they reached the caverns, it was noon. Jeff instructed them to wait at the entrance while he investigated the cavern with Dormiton. He lit a torch and handed it to his comrade. The human went first, prepared to fire his laser if he needed to. They came to 2 tunnels that went in alternate directions. Wait here, Jeff told him. One of us should stay here in case we need to warn the others. They entered the tunnel on the right, and Jeff noticed a concentrated white cold gas with no odor and non-poisonous. The tunnel consisted of metal that he wasn't familiar with, and it was well lit. Someone constructed it, and he knew it couldn't have been the Lingwards. Jeff came upon 2 metal doors at the end. He must have accidentally tripped them because they opened and revealed another hallway. Startled, Jeff gripped his laser tight and was cautious about looking in all directions. He decided it was clear and entered the hall on his right until he reached another door. He should have gone back and told the others, but his curiosity grew as he ventured further. The door didn't open at first, but after he pressed one of the 4 buttons on the side of the panel, it responded. There was a flight of metal stairs which led to a massive control center. Jeff never saw such an array of computers in all his years as an astronaut. There were men, or at least they looked like men, running them. He couldn't tell because they were all wearing helmets. Looking beyond the machinery, he saw several large black spaceships, much like the ones he had seen on Pluto and over the ocean. They were black and spherical, with fins on their sides. There were too many of the aliens wandering around for him to do any more exploring at the moment. Jeff wondered why they wanted to build a base on this planet. Perhaps it was a scientific research station? An alien race could learn something from the geological features and the climate. On the other hand, if it was a battle outpost, nothing could be gained by landing here. There was nothing to conquer. The only possibility he could surmise was that they were hiding from an enemy force. Sooner or later, they would discover the village, and no one knew if they were friend or foe. Jeff went back to where Dormiton was, careful not to be spotted. He grabbed a torch from his amphibious friend and gestured for him to leave the cave. There's an alien complex down there, he told his friends. How long it's been there, I don't know. I'll help you escape, but once I know you're all safe, I'm going to try to find a way to pilot one of their ships and leave this place. I've got to get back to Mars. I'll miss you guys, but it's really for the best. I need people. Why don't you just ask them if they'll trade something for one? Asked Miljic. unaware of the seriousness of the situation. Because I have no indication whether this race is hostile or not, Jeff answered. They may kill all of us if they find us. No, the best thing for all you to do is get out of here until I find out what this is all about. Where will we go? Asked one of the Lingworths. We'll need to build rafts and get you off this island, Jeff told him. You'll be safe that way. And what will you do? Dormton asked, quite worried. You can't just leave us, Miljik snapped. What do you expect from me? Jeff asked. I've shown you how to build, grow your own food, and fight if you need to. Time has come to return to my own kind. Your people have to defend themselves. What would happen if I died? You'd have to fight. I've shown you how to make spears, bows, and arrows, but it's up to you to use them. Lingwort was very grateful to Jeff, and it seemed hideous to leave them vulnerable to attack, knowing that moving to another island was only a temporary situation. However, he had needs of his own to attend to. He was homesick and didn't want to spend the rest of his life with aliens. This may have been his only opportunity to escape this world and get back to human beings, wherever they may be. He didn't believe it was an unreasonable request. We want to go with you, cried Dormton. Jeff could tell how much Dormton loved him and respected him. Absolutely not, he retorted. You couldn't survive in space with me. It's full of unknown dangers and hostile environments. I have no guarantee that I'll even reach my destination. Do you really believe being of peace such as you can survive in an environment of war? I'm not afraid to take risks, Dormton stated. I won't let you leave by yourself. It's too dangerous, and you need someone to help you. Dormton was right about that. Jeff couldn't very well charge into the complex and steal a spaceship without being seen. An operation of this nature needed planning and at least 2 people, if not a whole army. He saw no other alternative than to agree with him. Very well, he said. I will take 2, and only 2 of you, with me. However, the minute I hear any complaints, I'm going to throw you in the ejection capsule and send you to the nearest planet. The rest of you can get off this island somehow. Perhaps we can build a raft and launch it from the back cove. Once you're off this island, you'll be safe. Right now, we have to find shelter, so follow me. Jeff was just leading his troop back into the jungle when he heard a noise from the rocks above. Someone fired a weapon, and Jeff's only defense flew from his hand. He grabbed his hand, stinging in pain. Don't move! A voice called from above. Jeff turned, confronting an army of the same beings he saw on Pluto. He wondered what type of gas they were breathing. He knew it wasn't oxygen because they wore spacesuits and tanks on their backs. The leader gestured for the 2 of the men to grab Jeff. They each grabbed one of his arms and yanked him behind his back. Who are you? He asked as he walked down from the hill. The Lingworths were frozen in a state of shock at these militant beings, too scared to fight or flee. They always thought Jeff was invincible and godlike, and to see him in a compromising position was shocking to them. The leader walked over to him and examined him thoroughly. I asked you a question, human, he sneered. A spy for the Galactic Republic, no doubt. Jeff wasn't thrilled about the fact that he suspected him of being a spy, but had no choice to listen to what he had to say. When he didn't answer, the creature struck him across the jaw. Jeff grew weak from struggling to get loose because the aliens were stronger than he was. He wasn't sure if he could take one of them, let alone 3. You'll talk sooner or later when your friends die off one by one, he threatened. Wait, Jeff pleaded. I'm not a spy. I'm an astronaut for the Martian Space Academy. I've been stranded on this island for 2 years. I don't even know how I got here. Lies, the leader screeched. He raised his laser toward Jeff's friends. Jeff struggled as he fired, and two of the Lingworths vanished instantly in a flash of light, leaving only smoke where they stood. The others watched in disbelief and fear. Maybe now he'll talk. All right, Jeff pleaded. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. Just don't kill any more of my friends. He approached the human and pointed the gun in his face. What do you know? Perhaps you are a Republic spy? What can you tell me of Mars, human? You cannot survive on such a planet without oxygen. You are lying. Why are you here? What brings a human this far out? He knew that Jeff was telling the truth. It was evident to Jeff that he was playing a malicious game of some kind. I was marooned on this planet for 2 years, Jeff explained. I have no ship because your men destroyed it. I live with these beings. We are peaceful. We are no threat to you. If you are not Tellurian, you are a threat to us. He grunted and shoved the gun in the human's mouth. We just want to live in peace, Jeff insisted one last time, the coldness of the steel weapon against his lips. Peace is for the weak, the cycloptic alien laughed. Take them to the complex for extermination. Oh, except Major Walker. I want to talk with him. Walker wasn't surprised. The leader knew him due to the incident on Pluto and expected execution along with his friends shortly. The Lingworths were pushed into the tunnel like a herd of cattle as Jeff watched in hopelessness. Tears ran from Dormiton's cheeks as he stared at his companions of fear. They didn't understand what they were about to face, or understand why the newcomers behaved so erratically. It was hard to believe a race could be so cruel and so uncaring of life, and then he reminded himself that these beings were not from here and could care less about living in harmony. Jeff was unable to determine what his captors had in store for him, or where they were taking him. They directed him down a passageway with 4 doors until they came upon the last door. He didn't see any writing on any of the doors, which made it difficult for him to know where he was going when he needed to escape. They entered the doorway, which opened up on its own into a laboratory. He scanned the room, which contained equipment that was unfamiliar to him. The containers they used to hold specimens were flat and circular. There weren't any test tubes visible, only round glass balls. The leader spoke in a foreign tongue to his followers, gesturing for them to leave the room. He still kept his laser pointed at Jeff, removing his helmet. He was wearing some kind of mask over his nostrils and mouth, but Jeff could still hear his voice. Sit down, he said, pushing him into the chair. I'll spare your friends if you tell me the location of the Centronian base and your own planet. You've already found my planet, Jeff responded, as the mind raced for an avenue of escape. The odds were more even now, and he was sure he could overcome the leader. You are lying. You are not from here. You are from Mars. I need to know where the Martians have hid their race. Why? That's for me to know. That's for me to know, he laughed, and bared a wicked grin, which Jeff saw through his transparent respirator. Forgive me, Mr. Walker. I have been rude to my guest. I haven't introduced myself properly. Balta is my name. I am the Imperial leader of the Tellurian army. I already know who you are. You are Major Jeff Walker of the Martian colony. You shouldn't be surprised that I know you. After all, it was you who killed my 2 best agents and pilfered their ship. To me, it's a small offense, but unforgivable. Well, your people are no longer on your puny red planet. They have left, and I want to know where they have gone. Why punish the others for what I have done? because it's insurance that you will tell me what I need to know. If you don't, your friends will die. Why should your kind rule the galaxy? Jeff asked as he reached for one of the glass balls behind him. Keep your hands where I can see them, Walter barked and pointed the gun at Jeff's chest. I won't tolerate any more defiance. I don't suppose you will, the Martian said, as he struggled to take the laser from Balta's hand. With his free hand, Jeff grabbed a glass ball that contained acid and smashed it on the alien's hand. He fell to the floor and clutched his hand in severe pain. Jeff grabbed his laser and struck him over the head, which rendered him unconscious. Jeff fired the laser at the door, blasting a massive hole in it, providing his means of escape. The two guards were on the floor, and Jeff ran down the corridor until he came upon a large red door. It was partially open, revealing 4 guards in front of a brig of some kind. Dormiton and Miljic were the only prisoners in it, both of them frightened and crying. Outnumbered, he had to think of a good plan of escape. He thought about the direct approach, but it would bring all Balta's men down and trigger the alarm, so he abandoned that idea. Jeff quietly backed up into the corridor, took the stone he picked up from the cavern floor earlier, and threw it in the opposite direction than where he was. 2 of the guards heard the sound and headed down the corridor, and Jeff came up from behind and smashed their helmets together, which dazed them as they fell to the floor. The other guards heard the commotion and opened fire. Jeff fired back at them, rolled his body across the floor, just missing a blast. He fired back, hit one of them in the head, and shattered his skull like a crushed pineapple. The other one escaped and set the alarm off. He fought them off for a moment, but more would be on their way. When he reached the brig, he immediately destroyed the force field controls with his laser and released his friends. Jeff, Dormiton yelled in relief, are you all right? He grabbed him around the waist in comfort. We have to get out of here, Jeff stated as he grabbed his arm. Miljic quickly followed. Grab their guns, Jeff commanded. The Lingward stared at him, unwilling to comply. Never mind, let's just get out of here. They heard the loud ringing throughout the complex as the trio were headed down the corridor, unaware of where they were heading. Jeff kept his laser ready as the sound of footsteps could be heard behind them, getting closer and closer. They ran faster until they came upon 2 huge doors, and Jeff pressed the button that opened them. He had to buy some time, so he ran to the nearest door panel and pushed the primary door lock. It would take them a while to cut through the thick metal, working to his advantage. The controls were written in English, which didn't make sense to him. Why would a race so far away from Earth or Mars write English and speak English as well as their native tongue? Maybe they had been watching humans for some time. They piloted the spacecraft much faster than anything humans developed, and their computers were far more advanced than any he ever saw, but weren't impossible to decipher. For Jeff had the extensive knowledge of computer systems. The ringing of the sound alarm made his hands a little jumpy, but after a few minutes, he felt a little calmer. He tried to tap into the mainframe, but was unsuccessful, and he didn't have time to play around, so he abandoned his efforts and moved away from the machine. Stand back, he told his friends, and aimed his laser at the computer. He fired and exploded and smoked. He pointed to an air duct and blasted the grating with his laser. Gestured for them to get into the air duct. Bent down, allowed them to climb on his shoulders. Jeff threw his gun up to them as the sound of guards coming through the doors intensified. They worked themselves down the duct until they were well out of the distance. They would be safe until they reached the end, where there was sure to be a welcoming committee. Jeff's grandfather once told him that fear could either help someone or hurt someone, depending on what the situation was. He claimed that when a man was no different than a wild animal when cornered, and that fear could become a dangerous weapon. Death was not something to be afraid of, and it was just a final phase in the cycle of life, a bridge to the hereafter. Jeff always dreamed of what it would be like without war, disease, or famine. Living in Lingward was just about as close to this dream as he would ever get. Even this peaceful world seemed to become a battleground when outsiders were involved. Jeff himself didn't realize it at the time, but he had already poisoned their little quiet community. He had already shown them the first steps of being a human. He taught them how to kill. And that's chapter 1. Next week I'll be doing chapter 2, and we'll be, and the question for this week is, what were the two names of the space stations that were orbiting Mars? You can email them to me, ntdavis at 18@verizon.net, or you can send them private message on my regular Facebook page, Nick Davis, or you can comment on you can also comment on this post itself. That I guess I can do it that way too. But the first answer that's correct, I will say it's correct, and then nobody give any answers after that, because I already told the person it was correct. So, and all this month I do have the special deal going, the 2 coloring books for $8 with a box of crayons. And that will be over by the 28th, next Monday. So you can get that through my website, nicholas.tdavisbooks.com, or you can email, get a hold of me on Facebook, one or the other. So we'll see you next week. We'll be doing the next reading next week. So until then, one more thing I did have to mention is that I'll be having a Comic-Con coming up next month, March 26th and 27th. If you're out by Geneva, I'll be out there at it's the Lakefront Hotel, and it's both of those days from 10 to 5. So if you're in that area, you can stop in and check it out. So we'll see you next week. And until then, bye-bye.
Very good.